What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How is everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, March 8th of 2023? Before we get into all the fun stuff, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Find us on the socials. Go search the Alex Cuesta Show. David, your cat is creeping us out. What is Buddy doing back there?
She's just chilling back there, man. I'm not going to bother her. She's just laying down. I can't say anything about that.
I honestly hope she goes like full like big cat lioness and just attacks your neck.
I mean, it'd be
of the show.
It would be good TV.
But we
have the VOD, so I mean, you could put the video there.
We do. I could. If you get attacked, I will certainly put that clip out. I don't care how ugly it kind of looks. That is worthy.
No, that needs to go out. That's views right there. I mean, that's perfect.
Exactly. And our family would love anything violent against you. Anyway, but so before we jump into our awesome guest this week, we had a really cool show last week. We had Shane Cashman on. He has a new book coming out, Tales of the Inverted World 2. He is a writer for Timcast News. He was also caught up in the center of that whole Eliza Blue mess. So if you guys are interested in hearing about that, he's an open book. Go listen to last week's show with Shane Cashman. But this week, I feel, Dave, like we are like fulfilling our anime character arc right now. Like we are closing one door.
Collecting the Infinity Stones.
We are collecting the Infinity Stones because this week our guest is Charles Love. He is a co-host of the Cut the Bull podcast and author of Race Crazy. And if people, astute listeners, go, Cut the Bull, we've heard that before. It's because we've had the other two co-hosts on the show, Shamika Michelle and Wilfred Riley. So Charles, it is a pleasure to have you on. What's going on, my man?
I am doing great. It's great to be here. Big shoes to fill across all of those guests. And I don't know, if you're going to do all three of the Cut the Bull, that's great. But if you want to do me last, I don't know if I want to be the closer.
I think that's appropriate because you were like the brainchild of Cut the Bull. So that, Shamika let that cat out the bag, that you were the one that called everyone up and was like, hey, let's do this. So it's kind of the right way to have like the grand mastermind of it all come and close it all out. I do have to say one thing, Charles. I am absolutely jealous that your intro song is by Patriot J. That is freaking fantastic. When I first started
the out is Patriot J. The in is Zuby.
The in is Zuby. In is Zuby. That's what it is. I did get it wrong. The in is Zuby. And I was jealous of both of those. I'm listening going awesome. Like, man, we really need to get big so we can be friends with these people and get someone to cut us some cool stuff. It's like, it is fantastic.
And they haven't even been on the show yet. It's coming though. It's coming. It's a lot of balls to juggle. As hosting a podcast, how hard it is to get to put these shows together, get interesting people, and to do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they were really great, both of them. And Patriot J is a funny dude.
He is. And, I was talking to David the other day, and like, we are fortunate where we have people like yourself. And I don't know if you fall into this, where you kind of cast a big net, right? You're asking people, you want to come on. And then all of a sudden, boom, you get a ton of people that want to come on. And it's like, now we're going to have to push you back a few months. And they're just like, oh, my calendar might be full. And it's like, okay, hopefully leave us there. So it's like, it's a good problem to have. Right. And it's and hopefully, that sprouts more and we get to continue to have awesome guests like you. And I want to jump right into it with you, though, because you are the author of the book Race Crazy. And, race is such a big topic right now. It's always okay. So America, it's always kind of been a big topic, right? I think that's something that is, honest, that race has always been something globally, but in America as a country, it's something we've fought with, battled with, gone through a bunch. Right now, it's intentionally, I think, being used for some nefarious nonsense. You wrote the book Race Crazy. What was your inspiration for writing that book?
Well, at the time, especially with the title, I'm like, man, am I saying too much? Am I putting too much out there? Boy, did I understate. The inspiration was pretty simple, though. I had been writing about the culture for a while. I think Yeah, I don't get to be a guest that often. So, so I get to say that I don't like to toot my own horn, but I think I was ahead of most people on the cultural shift because I didn't look at it just as the race thing. I just saw collectively everything was going in the wrong direction slowly at the time, because I'm talking probably 10 years ago. Was it 10 years? Yep. Might have been more than that. Yeah, it was definitely more than that. And I said, but it was slow. So nobody else was noticing. I'm like, don't you think this is kind of odd? So I was already talking about that. And people were like, what are you talking about? Focusing on politics or their daily lives. But then I started to see that the shift in the way people talked about race was changing. And so the book before Race Crazy, my second book was We Want Equality, how the fight for equality gave way to preference. So I could see that people were going from, sandwich board that said, I am a man, and saying, treat me the same as everybody else. Don't treat me worse than anybody else, which most people should be okay with. That is a wonderful standard to live by. And then they subtly went to treat me better. Right. And it was just all of a sudden, it was a switch. And people just like, that sounds different. I don't know why. And they kind of moved on until 2020.
Can you pinpoint like kind of a moment? Do you have an aha moment that you remember looking, obviously you ingest a lot of news, you look at a lot of that stuff. Do you remember a moment and looking and going, this could be big. This could be something that changes. And then all of a sudden the snowball starts to occur and you're like, man, I'm angry that I was actually right, but I was right.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I'd have to give it some thought. I can't think of one on race specific. Because race, like you said, race has always been a conversation. It's kind of like this moving target and it's layered, right? So as things happen, it shifts. It's like a tank moving slowly, right? Just moving slowly. So it's moving, but it's slow. Over 5 to 7 years, you notice the difference. But if you look month to month, everything looks the same. So race will be a little more difficult to pinpoint where there was a seismic shift because it's always moving. But culturally, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was February of 1998. It was, and I'm young. I'm hanging out with my friend in his mom's basement watching TV. And the UConn women's basketball team is coming out and they're playing. I forgot who they were playing, but they were playing Rutgers, I believe, or someone. They go on the court. And we're talking as the ESPN is starting to open in the game because we're watching anything that's on sports at the time. Yeah, and we're just hanging out on a Saturday talking and half watching the TV. And we notice Nikisha Sales comes out there. I'm like, that's all right. But anyway, we're talking, me and my friend are talking. And she comes out, she shakes a girl's hand at the center court. And then she goes down, she shoots a layup. And then the girl on the other end goes up and shoots a layup. And they get together and they shake hands. And it occurred to me what has just happened. And for those who weren't watching, who aren't old enough to remember, or who aren't women's basketball fans, Nikisha Sale was their star player. She was about a point, I believe, away from breaking the all-time scoring record at UConn, and she tore her ACL with half the season left in her senior year. Obviously, she was going to break the record. Much more of a standout player than the person who held the record from the 70s or whatever it was. So they felt it was a nice thing to do to give her a layup so she can break the record and give the girl on the other end. So they start off the game at 2-2. Everybody kind of clapped. The coaches shook hands and they moved on. And my friend and I were talking. We see this happen. We realize what's happening. I look at the TV and I turn to my friend and I say, well, what about the girl who has the record now? How is it fair to her?
Yeah.
Right. So this is where we went from. So no, I like that example because I started to notice it everywhere. It was like they lived and the glasses came off, but it wasn't race. So from there I went, wow. So you all had a tournament and you lost and just everybody got a trophy. Just everybody just got a trophy. They just passed them out. Oh, okay. That's interesting. And it was like, so mercy rules. What now? So you just stopped playing when it got to a certain score. Game wasn't over. You just stopped. Right? No, because we can't have the kids lose. So then we were like, so that's what I noticed, how everything just became, and what my running joke is, most of the cultural problem we're facing today can be linked back to Seinfeld. I'm kidding because I love Seinfeld. But my point is, everybody remembers the episode where George and Jerry were confusing people and they thought they were gay. And they were like, wait a minute, they think they're gay. And what did they say? Everybody remembers. They threw their hands up and they said, not that there's anything wrong with it. I said, the moment we said what anybody else does is not our issue, and we stopped shaming people, that was for me the shift in the culture that I saw that I knew was bad. It's like it went from rich poor, black, white, Klan member or activist, you saw somebody knock over a liquor store, we all agreed that was wrong. Now today we're like, well, what
they
was
have
his mother
insurance.
like?
It's okay. They have insurance.
Yeah.
That business has insurance. It's only a business.
Right. Or they'll say, well, he did it, but why did he did it? Is it systemic problems? Is it racism? How does mom treat him? Nobody would have cared how your mother treated. In the 60s, in the 50s, when racism was overt and we were fighting it day to day in the street. If you a business in the black community, nobody said, well, let's find out what his mom was like.
And here's the thing, too. And in the black community, right? If a kid did that, a teenager, what were we expecting? Mama might come out and whoop his ass. Not what was his mom like.
We were also expecting the neighbors to. If
the neighbors
one of Mama's friends saw it, he was going to get two. What
was it going on? I think it was going on during one of the riots during the Obama years, and there was a viral video
of the woman in St. Louis.
And the mother grabbed him by his collar and was smacking him up, dragging him back. And I just remember looking at it, and everyone's like, that is parenting. Nobody touched that woman. Nobody that is parenting right there. And
yeah, they probably turned to him like, dude, you should probably just go ahead and go home.
Exactly.
We'll handle this. Give me your Molotov cocktail.
Give me
So it's wild. And that's and again, so I grew up in that generation where you were watching a thing. I was playing sports in the 90s and 2000s as, middle school, high school, elementary school stuff. And that was kind of the start of my generation where we were a shitty football town. I liked football. We weren't very good at it, but everyone was starting to get a trophy a little. I remember had to be my junior Pee Wee year. Going in, I was maybe 10, 11, 12, something like that. And we were bad. We weren't a good team. And I just remember I look up and there's trophies everywhere. And I go look, they handed it to me and I was like, what is this? And they're like, oh, participation. And I think I broke it. I think I broke it. And I'm like, we were terrible. What do I want this for? And so I've always had that mentality of that doesn't teach you anything. I don't like participation trophies, but I agree with you. That might be kind of when it shifted. Now, race is a little bit trickier, right? Because there's always been a lot of things going on. There's been overt racism kind of in the history of America, right? We've always had an overt racism and it was accepted for the longest time. And I think to an extent, we're seeing it become accepted again in a different way currently. But I think about it and it's weird that I don't know when that shift happened because I know I grew up. Who was one of our most famous fashion people in the world? RuPaul, a cross-dressing black man. That was when I grew up, that was accepted. No one cared. RuPaul was famous. They had the drag show. That was hilarious. And for me, I kind of think it really shifted during the Barack Obama presidency when he kind of made a lot of a focus on the police brutality specifically against black people. Rodney King always stuck in people's heads. But then it kind of wasn't super highlighted. But now the president of the United States is coming out frequently calling out police for certain things. And that's kind of when I see more of the shift going into a lot of the divide that we have today. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm one of those few rare people who kind of give Obama a pass. And I know people cringe when they say that. Not because he was good on this stuff, because I'm realistic and he could never live up to being the savior he was expected to be.
Okay.
If he were conservative, if he just stayed out of race, he would have been like, he's a weak black man because he's not talking race. If he talks race too much, he could not win. People, for conservatives who disagree with me, go back. And I'm not saying he was good on it. I said, let's be fair. Whatever he did was going to be taken poorly, right? If you go back to when he won, big moment for people. Not me, but for people. I just don't care about this stuff. It's just me. But, I get it. Other people do. Whatever. But people were going around talking about now I'm not going to have to pay my bills. Right? Everything is good now. Everything's great. And then you had conservatives like, I didn't think it's going to be that good. But, you ask them, people in their 40s and 50s, they're like, well, I voted for him just because I thought that would put an end to all this we're all racist crap.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm like, you sucker. I didn't vote for him either time, but it had nothing to do with race or being a conservative. I wasn't voting for Republicans back then. I didn't vote for him because he was a state senator. Mm-hmm. He was a senator I was in Illinois, so I know how he became a senator. And he was senator for 35 seconds. I'm not voting for this guy to be president. I had nothing about race, nothing against him being a Democrat. I was like, I'm not voting for the guy. But if you're active in politics and an active Republican and you went and voted for him, hoping that would end racism, you're part of the problem. That's one. So that's the only reason I give him a pass. But beyond that, What I will say the difference is, of course, he said some things and had some conversations in ways that no other president would have been able to do, being black is one. And then the other is, could he have done a better thing and taken advantage of the moment better? Probably so, but let's be fair. When he did not, so when all the centrists and the conservatives were mad because he was talking about race all the time, okay. But then when he did say something that you thought made sense, my brother's keeper, meritocracy, pull your pants up. What did the black community do? At that point, that was the one time they were like, well, he ain't really black anyway. That's the problem. That's how you know he not Adolf. Growing up with that white mama and daddy from Kenya, he don't know. Keep black folk name out your mouth is what they say. Right? So he could, I'm just being fair to the dude. He could not win anyway. But what I will say that shifted was the way the people who were pushing for advancements in racism and racial equity and equality and all that kind of stuff, whether their intentions were good or not. What changed is the way they would shapeshift. So most people don't agree with the Civil Rights Act of the 60s. But of course some people did. We act like 100% of people agree with it. Let's be real. Everybody in the movement didn't agree with each other. So let's stop that naivete. So, but what I'm saying is even then, they were disagreeing on the tactics. Should we be violent? Should we not be violent? Should we do it from a political step or for consumerism? Should we do a boycott of business? That kind of thing. But the goal was the same. At that point, when Obama was president, it changed because that's when, at the same time, culturally, the other things I was talking about kind of merged, and people were changing definitions. So what it meant to treat people. I'll give you one example. You just talked about Obama, and one of the things he talked about that he got criticized for rightly was the whole Trayvon could be my son. Could look like my son. If I had a son that I don't have, and he would never live there, and he would never be doing the things that he did because I can get my kids into Harvard. But I digress. But in that thing, it's another thing that people don't really talk about. Is he was doing the shape-shifting they're doing now. So he was talking about police brutality, but Trayvon wasn't shot by a cop. That's okay. Let's just twist the words. Right? And so you go to Ferguson, you find out, you send your black federal attorney general down there to prove that something wrong. You're like, oh, I looked at everything. Because I wrote about this in my book. I looked at everything. I pulled all the evidence. I brought all the people down there. These are people who are bleeding for us to find racism. And they said, nope, no racism. Michael Brown was wrong. All the witnesses were on this side. One witness, one of my favorite, was a black woman, said, I ain't got nothing positive to say about cops. But that dude ran at that police officers, right? So Obama admitted all that and said, but still, there was some shady stuff going on. So we should shut the whole city state down.
Yeah, no, it was... And there was things handled incorrectly. And I agree with you. Obama was in a no-win situation. But, if you want to talk, Charles, from what we know now, Donald Trump's fan base is the only one that's ever thought he was a messiah, right? We forget the Obama years, growing up to it, people fainting, Chris Matthews quite literally having an orgasm on screen about it.
It was a tingle up his leg.
A tingle up his leg. Oh, and we forget that quite literally Barack Obama was Black Jesus. Like, there was no other way to go about it. The man was Black Jesus coming to save the Black community and end racism, right? That's exactly what he was portrayed at. But now that's revisionist history, right? Because nobody likes Joe Biden, so nobody treated him that way. He's just a marionette puppet right now being strung around. But, it's been nuts. So I want to get into the book itself. Okay. Give us a little synopsis of the book. What can people expect when they open up Race Crazy?
Well, one thing, I ranted a lot, obviously, because your question was simply, what was the inspiration of the book? So the inspiration of the book was simply 2020. George Floyd dies. People lose their freaking minds, and they're like, "We must do something. We must fix this now. This has gone too far." And they obviously overshot the skis. We know this now, but of course, when I'm writing this, people are like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Look, I'm not, I'm not a Republican. I'm not getting in your political fight. This is cultural for me. All I'm saying is, if you think racism is as bad as it was in the past, you're an idiot. But even if you think I can't control it, you're an idiot. But I'm not talking about the fact that you're an idiot. But you are an idiot, so I can't control it. So racism is as bad now as it was when they killed Medgar Evers. Fine." I don't think the way to solve it is to give money to grifters and people who use the word cis heteropatriarchy 400 times. People who start an organization, whether they're wrong or right, giving them their argument, to end police violence, and then don't talk about policing at all. See, people miss that. I write that in the book. I basically scraped the site. My friend Mary Grabar wrote Debunking Howard Zinn. Well, I was basically taking that model with the 1619 Project. The 1619 Project and BLM. Yeah. So take what they say.
Oh, God bless you for going through the 1619 Project.
right, there you go. And put it up to fact. So what they'll find in the book is they'll find that for a long period of time, of course, they shift. When they get complaints, they got to clean stuff up. But for about 2 years solid, BLM had nothing on their website about policing. It was all political activism, how to get Democrats elected. I nothing against Democrats and nothing against being a political arm of some group. But if your organization, okay, there's nothing wrong. You two would agree that there's nothing wrong with helping children with diabetes, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with helping people with cancer, right?
Nope, nothing wrong with that.
But if I decide I'm going to raise money and give money to the Cancer Society, and I find out that you gave it to children with diabetes, isn't that still a little unsavory? Now, you can say it, but they're both good causes. But that's not what I gave my money to.
Exactly.
No, but then you hate kids with diabetes if you have a problem with it. So why do you hate kids with diabetes? Why do you want those kids to die?
Exactly. I don't. So I was talking to the white liberals who had the guilt, who's like, well, George Floyd died. I must do something. Then give money to a reputable organization that you already. I would rather you give money to the NAACP. I would rather you give money to the I can't believe I'm saying this, to the ACLU even.
I think it's almost equal. At this point, I think the ACLU and BLM are close.
That's true. They're really close. But the difference is, at least they're not lying about what they believe. They're really progressive, and they lie about the groups they attack, but they're not lying about what they're doing, right? Right. Give money to Planned Parenthood, right? At least they're not lying about what they're doing, or the NRA. They're not different sides of the spectrum politically, but neither one of them are lying. You know what they're doing, right? However, BLM is telling you, I'm going to end systemic police brutality. And then what was the thing on that site I wrote about? It was free. I keep wanting to say A$AP Rocky. That's funny. It was free. What's the guy's name? The rapper from Atlanta, but he was from London, and he was here. He overstayed his visa, and they tried to deport him.
21 Savage.
Yeah.
Savage.
Free. Yeah. Free Savage. That's what was on their website. That was their accomplishment for police brutality. Then I write about how BLM is just, flipping over tables and breaking windows. But the real people who can get an arm's length of our politicians is this thing called the Movement for Black Lives, and no one ever heard of it. So there's a whole section picking apart this website and this money, $100 million, all this money. So all the other smaller groups get fed from there, and no one knew who they were. So I write about that. And then the third part of it, because the book is talking about progressive racism. So, fixing racism by being racist, which Kendi ended up saying, right? So the other part is about the 1619 Project. So there's a chapter about every essay on the original project and about what they get right, because I do say they get a lot right. One of my favorite critiques, which I love, was I did a book TV episode on the book. And I opened by saying, the majority of what they say in the 1619 Project is true. I think I said 70%. The critic claimed I said 90%. But the argument was, if 90% of it is true, then this guy's full of it. If 90% of it's true, that proves everything he said is to talk about. So what does he even talk about? What is the critique? And I laughed, and I was like, and I know it's nuanced. It takes people who are intellectually weak and emotionally lazy a lot of work to get there. So I help them out. So let's say I'm going to write the definitive book on American history, right? And I'm gonna write the definitive book. You read this book, you know everything, all the dirty, ugly stuff you need to know about this terrible place called America, right? And I do not miss a beat on the area that I write about, but I only write about Alaska. But everything that ever happened in Alaska is there.
Yeah,
I cover Alaska like nobody's business.
It is American history.
Right. But when did Alaska become a state? Right. And when did the country get formed? Right.
Yeah.
If I'm writing definitive American history, but all I put in it is Alaska, but everything I write is a fact. You see where I'm going? So I'm like, yes, they said some stuff that's true, but their lies of omission, which is not because they're dumb, it was intentional, makes a big difference. What you leave out matters. What you put in that's true without context matters. Do you know the 1619 did not mention any abolitionists? Do you know
I did.
they wrote? Do you know
there
they
weren't
talked
any,
about,
Charles? Because there weren't any. We're still
Right, there weren't
as
any.
bad
My wife-
now
my
as we
wife's
were
mad.
then.
Now, Nicole Anna Jones did go back when she wrote the book and say, I fixed some things. I shouldn't have said white people. I should have said some. So I give her that. That was a mistake. She admitted that. But another one I like, one of my favorites is, because she got a lot of critiques, but the ones that all the scholars missed. How about the fact that they did a big chunk on Reconstruction? I'm going to shut up and let you all talk. But there's a big chunk
You're the guest, brother.
on Reconstruction. There's a big chunk on Reconstruction. Reconstruction, right? They never mentioned Ulysses S. Grant. Decimated the Klan, two-term presidency.
Yeah.
The whole presidency fell within Reconstruction. Never mentioned him once. But they did find a way to squeeze in Rutherford B. Hayes and his terrible act, his compromise to become president, which is true, and let all of the Confederate people back into power. That part's true, but that was one act at one piece in 1876. You left out the 8 years before that.
And I wonder if they mentioned Woodrow Wilson resegregating the White House, or the fact that there was maybe one senator that actually switched parties, and all the other ones continued to be elected over and over and over.
Yeah, they didn't really go that far. They stopped. Well, that's not true. But everything else that was newer was really specific. It was
you can't actually talk about the switch historically because it didn't occur. So it's you can't talk about something that didn't happen and actually get factual things if you're trying to be. And you know,
they would talk about it, just wouldn't give you facts. It's like when they talked about criminal justice, and you know the number of people in jail and the people. They don't talk about the crime stats, so they don't compare what percentage of people commit crimes. They just say, look at how many black people in jail. Clearly, anything that's unequal is due to race. So,
you know, the most interesting part about the crime statistic is no one mentions Martin Van Buren or Tammany Hall creating the city and ghetto system, which is what we see where majority of black people live, and they intentionally keep them poor, and then now they're all committing crimes. I digress. That could be a whole other podcast, Charles, about how this was all by design and everything going by now has been in plan. But I do want to jump because, you know, Race Crazy, you give a good synopsis. I really think that people should go pick it up. People can find it anywhere, I assume, that you can find the book?
Brick and mortar, Amazon, all your places, everywhere you want to go.
Fantastic. So I do want to jump
me on Twitter and get a signed copy, whatever you want.
There you go.
I have a signed copy of Fossil Future from Alex Epstein. I look to be adding Race Crazy soon, my man. I'm looking for that. I want to get all my guests that have written books. I would love that. So I want to jump in you because I want to get your opinions on a few more things. I don't want to hold you here forever. So January 6th tapes are slowly trickling out, but I will criticize some of the people that held up McCarthy being the speaker. One of the things is they wanted to get the J6 film out, right? All that security footage. Right now, that footage is going to Tucker Carlson. And not a knock against Tucker. I don't think Tucker's a bad guy. I think Tucker does some good work, but that's not what they promised us. So I'm kind of pissed at Matt Gaetz in that group for a little bit. But Tucker's rolling out some things. I heard tonight's episode was a little redundant from day one, but I digress. What do you think about what we've seen so far from the Tucker Carlson J6 tapes? And are they really damning towards the insurrection narrative? Or are we seeing a lot of just cuts to bolster the right in their opinion here?
Well, it's like everything else today. Everything is polarized, but also you can't change anyone's mind because everybody on Twitter knows everything.
Yeah.
I mean, they know everything. So you're not having to teach. So like most of the things, I come down in a weird kind of unusual fashion that everybody's wrong. If I start with that, then you can't really attack me because I'm like, he's wrong too. Well, as long as they don't release the tapes, that's stupid. And then use that as an argument to say, to protect the people, we got to not tell you stuff. Stupid. So releasing the tape is great. Releasing it to one person, stupid. Because obviously he's going to edit it. It's not a knock on Tucker. He can't play 41,000 hours on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
And because I watched the local news and watched the way they covered it. And it was somewhat fair here in New York, but they were kind of like, some say that he's only doing this, and some say whatever. Why not just it's the internet now? It's not like 1920. So why not just put it out there and let everybody else watch it? And let all the podcasters, all the media people, and everybody who has time go through it. And then people will take whatever chunks they want, but it's all there. And just do that. But that's the one problem with the way it came out. As far as the insurrection, it's stupid because anybody who calls it insurrection is an idiot. So you got to leave it at that point. Like Will, if you watch our episode, we did a couple of them. We did one with Nick Searcy, who did a documentary, was there, and Will kind of got into it because he was talking about how bad they were treated. It was like Will, you know how Will is. He was.
I love Will. He's fantastic.
Look, Will was like, I'll be real simple to you. A lot of those people were innocent and none of that shit happened. But the people that were climbing the wall and did all that, you can lock them up. I don't care. Just lock up the BLM protesters too. So I don't want the different treatment. I'm not saying they weren't wrong, and I'm not saying what about BLM. Just let everybody up. I don't care, right? So, it's kind of like that in the sense that obviously some of those people needed to go to jail.
Absolutely.
But if you're acting like, and what I said was like, let's just look at the numbers. We just have to be honest about this, the whole insurrection, blah, blah, blah. There was far more people there than at any one of them, not collectively, of course, but any one Black Lives Matter march anywhere in the country, anywhere, right? None of them had more than 5,000 people. These numbers were reportedly between 200,000 and a million. Yeah. Let's make it low. Let's say there were 300,000 people there. How many went into the Capitol? I don't even care if they just went to look at the wall. How many? Hundreds? So let's make it 1,000. If 1,000 went in, that is a smaller fraction than the number of people at a BLM rally that threw a Molotov cocktail.
Yep.
Right. So let's just be real about that. So when you say it was an insurrection, J6, because no one's talking about this. When they say J6, they're not even isolating it to the people who went into the Capitol.
Yep.
Definitely not isolating it to the people who went into offices or climbed the wall.
Or broke windows and stuff. Yeah.
Who was there. They're saying everybody was there. So everybody was there. And then for it to be an insurrection, most of us argue, come on, wouldn't it have to be violent? You're trying to take over the country. But I think that's a good enough argument. But the true believers don't think that's enough. So I give them a second. Okay, maybe it doesn't have to be violent. But at the very least, it has to be orchestrated, right? We have to all know we're committing this insurrection, and each of us has a job, right? The three of us, each of us has a job. Those people are just wandering, doing stuff. So to call it an insurrection is asinine, right? So I just don't, but I don't argue with people on Twitter. So somebody says it's an insurrection, I just say nope. And they say, but yes, it was, and here's why. And I just say, okay.
So, that it wasn't organized when Alex Jones, who a lot of people don't agree with, was with a boom horn going to people, going back and forth, going, don't go in the building. This is a trap. Do not go in.
I know people who were there
around
that said something doesn't feel right and they left. Yep. So were they insurrectionists? Because remember, everybody who was there were insurrectionists.
And also, when they in May earlier that year, I remember the leftist media making fun of Donald Trump when BLM and rioters, and they had the little autonomous zone in DC, burned down a historic church. And that was much more of a violent insurrection, if you want to call it that, than what went on J6. Don't get me wrong. I watched J6 live. I was disgusted by what I saw. People that, again, I'd stop saying sides because there is no sides. Basically, I'm like, fuck everyone until proven equally. That's like, and I said last week with Shane Cashman, I'm saying here's my new thing. I don't trust anyone until I talk to him. So Charles, me and you are officially cool. I know who you are. I'm talking to you in person. All the other internet personalities, they could have right points, but I don't trust any of them because they could be saying what they say and doing other things on the side. So, but it's like, there are no sides, but just to see what went on, I'm like, this is terrible. Like, and the thing is, and I'll say it open, I was mad at Trump that he took so long to get out there and say, hey, cut it out, go home. He should have been out there earlier. I was mad. It took Trump like an hour or two. I'm like, man, it's the internet. You saw this going on. You were probably watching on TV with the whiskey going, ha ha, Pence, you asshole. Just get up there and say something. Like, it was an annoying time, but it wasn't an insurrection. It was a stupid riot that looking more like an FBI inside job every single moment.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. So that's just generally my thoughts. Everybody should see the video. No one's going to change their mind if they see it, so that doesn't really matter. I don't watch the stuff because I don't care enough to watch the video. So I don't know what else to say about it. It's he's not going to really reveal anything that people can be like, well, I didn't know that happened. So I mean, but it's smart on his part. I mean, look at that. Everybody, he is the news story.
Oh, exactly.
Everybody, local news in every city is talking about what he's doing, right? But then this whole overwrought, pearl clutching kind of like, oh, but now it's going to cause violence. And somebody sees people walking calmly. So watching them edit it so it looks like they're burning the country down, that won't cause violence. But if they see them walking calmly, they might think they can walk calmly.
You can't re-traumatize AOC.
My favorite
don't re-traumatize her.
But it's worse than the BLM riots because of look at where it happened. You mean in the building in the country that you hate?
Yeah.
I thought you said this was a white supremacist haven and it was founded by white supremacists and built on the backs of slaves and it's a horrible country. What do you care about a building?
And in a place that on a normal day we are allowed to walk into. On a normal day, anyone is allowed to walk into that building. It is the people's building for a reason.
Those people.
No. Apparently not. And not me or David or even you, because you might not be a Republican or you take a side, but you're not on the left, so you're not allowed.
So you're a Republican. Right.
Yeah, and I do want to say this because I think this has proven already how polarized everything is. Now more tape coming out of J6, seeing, whatever, the shaman and everything. But I feel like there's some similarities here to like what happened with the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Not a crazy amount, but the fact is that night you had all the footage you needed of the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Like you could see everything that happened and it didn't matter. None of it mattered. Like people took a side. They could have watched the video and they would still take the side saying, oh, he just like basically killed people. He didn't, it was nothing else. He just went there to kill people.
To this day, he killed black men.
Yeah, exactly. Some people still think he killed black people. But that's the thing is that, like you guys said, it went to Tucker. Some of it is going to be edited. There's way too much video and it should just really be put out there because then you could at least see everything that happened unedited. You could, well, maybe not everything. That's too much to watch, but you could see a good amount of what happened unedited and see what actually took place there, just like we saw with the Rittenhouse case. Because if you didn't have that tape, Rittenhouse might not have gotten off. He might have just gotten railroaded straight into a jail cell.
We probably could have saw how many people were there too.
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah.
With that many hours of tape, you should be able to get a really good idea of how many people were there.
Yeah.
And
which makes a difference if you want to call it all insurrection if they didn't go in.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly makes a difference. And especially right now, like take advantage of Elon Musk's Twitter. Because, if this was Twitter under, what was his name, Dorsey, you couldn't put all this footage on there. They would have taken it all down, right? They would have said, showing a violent insurrection, we don't do that. Elon Musk's Twitter, all this stuff will be there. And people on the left that want to prove their case will do their
Why don't they just go edit it and find more stuff?
Exactly. People on the right that prove their case would do it. And then if you're a good internet consumer, you would make sure you seek out both sides. You would go to the Young Turks and listen to them. You would go to...
Maybe something different on the left.
You know what I mean? I agree, but you would go to the extremes, and then when you get the extremes, you filter out the nonsense, and you're like, okay, this is what really happened. So, you got to go to both sides, and then...
I'm going to piss off some liberals now, but is there a right equivalent to the Young Turks?
A right equivalent?
Mainstream, though. I don't mean somebody...
mainstream might be difficult.
Ooh, I don't think
you consider Newsmax or OAN? Because I guess they're mainstream.
Which way you say Newsmax?
Newsmax, OAN, because I don't watch them. Honestly,
Newsmax got like Greta Van Susteren on it. What are you talking about?
That ain't the Young Turks.
Maybe Breitbart. Maybe Breitbart would be the only one. Maybe like it's a maybe.
The Young Turks just said that. I don't know what this equity stuff you're talking about. You're making it up. It's literally Biden's name on the executive order.
Yeah.
Give me a right wing equivalent to that. I mean, that's crazy talk.
Yeah, right wing mainstream. I don't think they're really.
That's right wing talking point. No, name me one liberal that ever used the word equity. The president of the United States, which is 17 executive orders.
Which is funny you mentioned that because I just got done reading a book called The World Turned Upside Down about the Cultural Revolution, Chinese Cultural Revolution, and that what Cenk Uygur did completely and totally reminds me of what would go on under Chairman Mao with the propaganda arm. On a whim, he would come out and say, okay, this is it. And if you were a revolutionary yesterday, you're now a anti-revolutionary revisionist. And now you're going to take the brunt. And it like switched over so many times. Bureaucrats and then the revolutionaries, like they all got the brunt of it. And this is kind of what I'm seeing here with the Cenk Uygur, where it's like everything was equity, 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 equity. And then you have Cenk kind of now, I guess, maybe waving the flag a little for a lot of people saying, hey, equity might be out. Maybe we need to start. And you look at even Bernie Sanders playing dumb.
Right. Playing like he didn't know.
Exactly. And I hate this conservative bullshit where it's like, go after Bernie. He doesn't know what equity means. Stop it. Stop it. The guy took his honeymoon in Moscow. The man is a communist Marxist to the T. He understands wokeism. He understands what equity is. He was playing dumb. And for any, and I love seeing the sheep like, oh, Bernie didn't know. Of course he knows what he knew, but he also knew that sitting there with Bill Maher and Russell Brand and people that, he couldn't full out go and say, no, equity's correct. We need to fix the outcomes so that the people that I want to be successful are only going to be successful. So it was so dumb. But yeah, I agree with you. They should just release the tapes, but it looks like if you're trusting Washington, D.C. to do what they said they were going to do, I got an ocean to sell you, man. I got an ocean. I got climate change to sell you because you probably believe in that too. Anyway, we're going to jump in because we have another thing I want to get your opinion about. Matt Walsh came out and absolutely in Matt Walsh fashion roasted Dylan Mulvaney. And it was like the most kind and cordial, mean way you can be, right? Because Matt Walsh isn't actually that mean of a dude. He didn't actually curse the guy off. He was mean. Don't get me wrong. He said he was plastic and pitiful and things like that. He's not wrong. But Matt Walsh was mean, and he flat out came and said, we got to stop being nice. We got to come out. We got to be mean. Being nice doesn't work. And this is a tactic that we have to take on the right now. Do you agree that this should be a stance now that the right takes? Should we now kind of fight fire with fire? Because growing up my life, it's always been this way. The left comes out, they're blunt, they're brash, they say whatever they want to say about the right, and the right just kind of goes on a denial campaign and is like kind of like the South Park Canadians, like, nah buddy, nah guy, nah, what are we doing, friend? Like, I'm yes your pal, buddy. Like, do you side with Matt Walsh here that we got to kind of get meaner?
Here I go again with my everyone's wrong. If they should just make me president, I have all the answers, but I digress. Look, would I have done what Matt did? No. Do I? But am I on the side of the hand wringers and the whining and the teary-eyed people whose feelings got hurt because of it? No. There's a lot of people who are against the same things I'm against, and I would never use their tactics. Well, what we need to understand, again, I was on this culture train before the rest of you, so let me help you all catch up. Mm-hmm. They have a 15 to 20 year head start. Yep. You're never going to, and most of the people, I'm not calling them sheep. It's not sheep like they're dumb. They're just living their lives and they don't know. 80% of the people just living their lives. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get wins and losses, right? You're going to win some battles, you're going to lose some. But you're never going to change anything when you're 20 years behind with one tactic.
Yep.
So I think everybody should just go for their tactic and I leave them alone. You know how many tweets I delete because I'm like, somebody's doing something and I'm like, that's dumb. I was like, it's not my place to say. If that's the way they want to fight it, let them
do it. I do it all the time. Same thing.
Because here's the thing. For the people taking here's my thing. So there's a couple of really high profile, everybody's retweeting and watching it, attacks on them. And their arguments are not wrong, really, but they're wrong. So they're saying this to either the argument from my good buddy Konstantin Kisin from Trigonometry saying that you're not going to convince anybody. He's not wrong. He's 100% right. I have nothing against what he said. He's right. Matt's not going to convince anybody. True. Right. And then the people who were saying that you hurt the movement by being so mean because of XYZ. In some ways, it's true. However, for everyone he's not going to convince, there are people who will hear the fire in his attack and pay attention to it when they wouldn't have paid attention to it, right? So now we have to argue. So really not arguing about who he's going to reach, because he's not going to convince those people, but he's going to reach some of these other people that wouldn't listen to the more subtle approaches, right? So now we just the negotiation is what's the net gain. If you take the pluses and the losses, where does that end up? But if everybody did their thing, so nobody's stopping Colin Wright and Christina Buttons and Constantine to do their thing, and from Matt and everybody else who's hellfire and brimstone on the other side, Michael Knowles from doing their thing. Nobody's stopping them. What I think what hurts more, and I think what Matt did will hurt with some people, but not a lot. Because most of the people either not paying attention, most of the people, you ask people on the street, they won't know who Matt Walsh is. Or if they think transgenderism and gender ideology is the way to save the world and every 3-year-old needs to change his gender, they don't care what he says anyway. Exactly. So he's not going to convince them. But what I will say is that the one thing that will hurt even more than what Matt Walsh does is Matt and Constantine fighting. That's what's bad. So when I see conservatives that's not conservative in the way I would, I don't care. When I see Republicans, I'm like, I'm not a Republican. What do I care? Let them say what they want to say. Right. So my bigger problem is, like you said earlier, which is why I clap, is I hate the both sides nonsense. There are no two sides. One is there's more than one side. Right. There are, right? And in the sides, right, there's multiple sides, but even within the sides, everybody within those groups don't think the same way. And let's stop acting like there's not an outside level of power and influence on certain sides. So if the right does something and is back crap crazy, and the left does something and is back crap crazy, but the right does it, they do it from a basement to their 20,000 followers in that one spot. And when they do it on the left, it's at the Oscars, and it's at the Super Bowl, right? And it's at your job, and it becomes mandatory. And if you don't do it, you're fired. You're only a child will say it's the same. And that's a lot of what I see on Twitter that makes me mad, or what I see in articles. It's like, or the people who want to say that gender, medical gender care for a 7-year-old is a bridge too far. But so they're on that side. But before they do it, they have to spend 3 paragraphs talking about how Trump is bad, Matt Walsh is bad, and I'm not a Republican, and make it clear that I hate the right, but they're right. But the article was about the fact that they were right, but them being right was the last line of your article, because you spent the whole article complaining about what you don't like about them, right? And then the last thing is the outrage is insane. So people like I tried to find a centrist to come on my show, and of course no one answered. And the ones that did, I liked too much because I wanted to argue, and I don't argue. Watch podcasts, I never argue, but I was pissed. And I'm pissed because I don't like how people will, and to be fair, words matter. They are against both. So they're right. They don't like what the right is doing, going too extreme, which I understand. And they don't like what the left is doing to children. Why I'm pissed then is because what they'll say is, when a teacher says, I'm going to have sex with a 7-year-old, they'll say, that's wrong. He shouldn't do that, and he should be fired. And I'm totally against it. I'm not supporting that. That person should be fired. That person is bad. It doesn't say anything about everybody else. Then a Republican in some small county somewhere will say, I want to ban transgender. See, this is why the Republicans lose. All the Republicans are bad. So he proposes a bill, and it's all Republicans. He wants to rape a child, and it's just him. And when he wanted to do it, you just said, I actually think it's wrong. You should not rape children. All in mild tone. But when that guy proposed that bill, you flip the table over. You're like, this is inhumane. I'm so offended. That's what bothers me.
You just described Joe Walsh on Twitter. You 100% just described Joe Walsh's Twitter feed, who is the fakest Republican on Twitter.
Joe Walsh and I would say I'm friends. I'm assuming we're not friends anymore. But me and his wife actually got into it, not him.
Wow.
I mean, listen, Joe Walsh, I've lost a lot of respect for the guy. Listen, you want to run against Trump and you want to run on, screw Trump, he's a bad guy, fine. And a lot of Republicans did that. Trump's a bad dude, which I find to be hilarious. Picking a politician that's a good person, that's hilarious to me. There is no such thing. We all hate politicians. We grew up that. Shouldn't have changed. But to then go, and this is where Never Trumpers lost me, they showed that there never were conservatives. None of them were ever on the right. And they still put an R next to their name. And it's ridiculous. And, and so I have to ask you, being the culture war aficionado, being the one that has seen this before a lot of us did, How do you solve this? How do we? What is
simple?
What is the base? What is the base foundation of how we can get this started? Because obviously we're starting, right? There is a rumbling going on at the surface level, but there's so much. We have a lot to go against. It's quite literally David and Goliath right now. They built this Goliath. We're David. We need to find that stone in that slingshot. Where are we getting that from?
David laughed at me. I was serious. It is easy. Doing it's not easy. The answer is easy. I call it the 200. Now, I use a back of the envelope calculation to get near this number. But my point is that Twitter is a small group of rabid people. It's loud, and the people who own it have a lot of influence. So it seems like a lot of people. It's not that many people.
Yep.
Right. So the problem is, a lot of this stuff is bad. A lot of stuff seems like it's norm and it's everywhere because the squeaky wheel is pushing it and it's on Twitter. So the 200 to me is the 200 million people of adult voting age who ain't paying attention to none of this stuff. Yep. I got a bunch of them in my family.
So do we.
Like, I tell my brother some stuff that happens in the news. She's like, say what now? What's going on?
Exactly.
No idea.
Exactly.
His life, his kids are grown, so nobody's coming home from school with something. So he has no idea what's going on. So I think everybody's still fighting what they do. You speak, you write books, you talk about it. All that stuff. Got to keep going. I think I agree with Nick Searcy that you need to create like a conservative Hollywood. It's not easy, but you need to do your own stuff. And you need to be funny. It can't all just be documentaries, and it can't all be whatever. You need fiction. You need to show that you're creative too, right? Andrew Clavin and stuff like that. You need to do all that. But at the end of the day, I know what needs to be done. I don't know how to do it. So I ask everybody who asks me that question, show me where to go to get them. Because like bowling alone, we're not in 4-H anymore. We don't go bowling. We're not in church. So I don't know where the people who are on Twitter are as a group. But if no one who's not living their lives on Twitter that I talk to thinks any of this stuff makes sense. None of them. Whether they're liberal or conservative, it doesn't matter. None of them. Not one. I've yet to meet a person who's like, well, that sounds great. The 7-year-olds changing their gender. I don't see why you have a problem with it.
Exactly.
What you say now? You say all whites are racist? Makes sense to me. I don't see what the problem. Not one. Not one. Even the black people, even Democrats, even people who call themselves, not one. So the key isn't that most people think this stuff is normal. It's that no one's telling them it's happening.
Yep.
So the solution is to get to those 200 million people and tell them what's going. And you need to convince them, once you get to them, that, like my brother, you need to convince my brother that it matters, because he agrees with me. But he's like, man, I'm doing well financially. My kids are grown. They're healthy. I don't have to worry about what you do to my kids. Why should it matter to me? They raise your taxes, so I'm rich. I'll be fine, right? So, bro, that's not really what he says. He hates when he thinks money. But still, it's not like dire to him. It's not like how eggs are expensive. How I'm going to get it? It's like, shoot, I just bought a Corvette. I can buy eggs. What are they, $20 a dozen? Give me 2 dozen. I don't care. How do you convince him? But when he understands that, racism is now in policy, medicine, and research. So if he gets sick, how he's treated is going to be based on that. If he understands that the politicians and the people who pick up his garbage and his aldermen and the people who make all those low-level policies that right by you, your HOA association, all those people are going to be whatever you call it, woke or whatever it is. But they're going to be coming from this next generation. They're going to be the next lawyers, the next real estate agents, and investors, all these people, the CEOs. So the product you buy, the services you get are going to be affected by it. Then they care. So that's the key. You need to get, because everybody says, Charles says, I understand you, but that's a loss to go. How are you going to get to them? You don't worry about that every 4 years when 40% of them vote in the presidential election. They find their way to the polls every 4 years. And there's a lot of them. More people don't vote mayor, don't vote anything else, don't know who their senator is, but they'll vote every 4 years for president. So can't you find a way to reach them and just show, all you got to do is show them what's going on. They don't believe it. That's what you need to do. Now, I'll let people wiser than me like you two tell me how to find them.
So, it's funny you mentioned that, because David, I've kind of talked about doing something similar to this in a way where I believe that right now, when we look at the way the political maps turn out, how does it work? I live in New York just like you, not in the city, but I'm in New York proper here. New York's a red state, but the cities are blue.
I went to Long Island for the first time. It blew my mind. I never saw bigger Trump's banners than when I went to Long Island.
New York is a red state, but the cities, Albany, Buffalo, Syracuse,
Maniacs.
New York City, they're all very blue. So what we need to do is Republicans, conservatives, people on the right, sane people for the most part, don't get me wrong, they're not all sane. There's a bunch of fucking lunatics on the right too, but more free thinking, free speech, freedom type of people need to grow a set of balls. Democrats walk all through the projects. They walk all through the cities and they go door knocking and they say, hey, have you heard of so-and-so? Oh, no. Okay. This is what they're going to do for you. Go vote for them. And they show up every single election cycle, every 2 years, not just 4. Every 2 years they're knocking. And the difference is, and, I've heard other commentators say this and they bring it up, but they don't do anything about it.
Right.
Republicans go out to the country. They can maybe hit 100 houses, 200 houses a person in a day if they're lucky. A Democrat goes into a city, they're hitting 1,000 people in
you talk
3
about
hours.
Real quick, in Illinois a few years ago, there was a Republican who ran for governor and he lost, right? Mm-hmm. Illinois has 102 counties. He won 99 of them. And he lost.
Yeah.
And my thing is, we need to get people that are brave. And you know what? And I'm not even going to lie. It's going to take Black and Spanish conservatives, very much so, because here's the thing. Especially now with the way the racial tensions are going, if some pasty-ass white boys walk into the hood and start harassing a bunch of people, they're going to get taken care of. Someone's going to drag them out. It's going to happen. But if you get more brave souls, and they could be there, don't get me wrong, but you have to go in a group, and you have to go and you have to, at least in the beginning, you're going to go knocking on door to door. You're going to tell them, hey, I'm here for this candidate. They're a Republican. Boom. Door slam. They're not going to listen first time around for the most part. You go there another 2 years. Same people. Didn't I see you? I don't want to talk to you. Oh, but I'm back. Well, by the third time, your persistence, they're going to sit there and say, all right, you're here again. What about him? What about this candidate? And then the fourth time, okay, tell me some more.
Keep going.
Tell me some more because my life hasn't improved. You keep on telling me you can improve my life. And now you're here 8 years later with the same, might not have to be the same person, but the same group of people. Conservatives are still trying now, going to these same people. They're going to sit there and look, and you can go to them at that point and say, hey, I know you've been on the roll. We bugged you for the last 8 years, but here we are. Has your life improved?
Right.
And it's going to take persistence. It's a long game.
And see, that's the political thing. The culture thing, we don't even need that. What we need is, you're right, though, when you talk about minorities, we need angry Blacks, and we need Democrats and centrists to speak out against specifically to the cultural thing. We need them to say this cultural thing that goes about. Because if the Republicans say it's right-wing propaganda, but if Black mothers from the school district that are struggling say these schools are failing, I don't trust the teachers union anymore, or they say that I want my kid to learn math, I don't want him to learn that he's oppressed, if they say it, or if people are like, I'm a Democrat, but that doesn't mean, right, or I'm gay or I'm Black or whatever, but that doesn't mean I think that 7 children should be changing their gender and that kind of thing. They have to speak up.
Yep.
And they're getting closer, but they're not quite there yet. And the ones who are, unfortunately, too many of the ones that I was yelling about before that kind of go to their, yeah, but I can't side with the right because they're there, and I can't side with Christians because religious people are bad, and I can't. So when you're done, there's nobody's side, whether you like them or not. They're the only ones fighting your fight.
Yep.
Well, I'm just going to do it on my own. Good luck with that.
Yeah, but now we know, though, that, someone like you, Charles, you're a Black man, but you're not politically Black. You're not capital B Black. You're just lowercase b Black. Or if you're gay, you're not politically gay. You're not.
She told me that. She told me I wasn't capital B.
Yeah, you're not capital B Black. That's not politically Black. You are also the black face of white supremacy, just like Larry Elder. You are joining in an exclusive club because you're not in lockstep. So I agree with you, and it does need to keep happening, and more people need to get brave and need to sit there, and when they see nonsense happening, don't just go with it. Stand up and say, hey, something's not right here. And I think it's starting to grow. But I agree with you, though, that the infighting that's going on a lot on the right now seems like it's consistent with a lot of content creators, isn't going to ultimately help. We need to be able to sit there and look at it and go, I might not agree with you, but I really fucking hate them. So I don't like your tactic, but I'm cool with whatever. You're still progressing in a more towards the way that I want to be anyway.
Well, even better, you don't have to comment on everything.
No.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so he says something stupid. Okay, that's why when I do, my comments are real short. They're like one word. It's like, do you think that's kind of that? And I was like, no.
David, I say that all the time. Nobody knows how to deal with no anymore. Yeah. Or a simple, I don't agree.
So what are you saying? What I'm saying, no. I said what I said. No. Yeah. So are you saying that? Then I'm like, then I just leave the conversation.
Not answering sometimes is the worst. Sometimes novels.
I got you to say, but I don't have time to argue with you about.
So, David, when Michelle Tafoya asked who could be president, I said Michael Malice. I'm going to say Michael Malice, Charles Love ticket would be a fan, because that would be the
Which one of us is on the top of the ticket, though? I don't know. I like
between you two.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. That'll be for you two to find out. But that would be the ultimate. I don't give a fuck what you do ticket. Leave me alone and don't be stupid, and we'll be good. And I think that would be a perfect campaign slogan. I think you guys would win in a landslide.
Oh, easily.
So, Charles,
you need the blackface on the top of the ticket now. I mean, that's just where the culture is now.
But you know what, though? You have to identify as a woman so we can have a black woman.
Well, that's going to be Michael.
Yeah, that is it. 100%.
I already got the black. He's got to be the woman. Sorry.
Oh, man. So, Charles, thank you so much for coming on. This was lots of fun, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Dave, do you have anything to say before we jump out of here?
I enjoyed the hell out of this conversation. And just real quick regarding, the infighting, it's just maybe it's best not to air it out on Twitter sometimes. Maybe it's best
just
not
call
to do
them. You know them.
Exactly. You could probably have just a normal conversation with these people in private. So it's weird airing it out on Twitter.
Yeah, or DM each other. If you don't got each other's numbers, you're probably following each other, DM each other. But yeah, I agree. So once again...
Did I live up to Shanika and Will?
Yeah.
You know what? You did, and you need to be a guest on more podcasts. Stop being so conservative on Cut the Bull.
Nobody invites me. I go wherever people ask me to. Oh, when I did Tavis Smiley, he did ask me who made me the black voice apologist for white supremacy or something. I go to him. I've been on Young Turks. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'll talk to anybody.
And you know what? And you have such a good tact too. Of we're going to start off with they're all stupid, but now we're going to find out who's dumber. Like,
it doesn't work. Then they want to argue with you. They're like, so why did the Republicans do that? I'm like, hell, I don't know. I'm not a Republican. Why you brought me on there to ask me about that? You told me we were talking about this. Don't ask me why Republicans do stuff because they're stupid. I don't know.
And here's the thing. You could find out who a true conservative or someone on the right is. When you ask a conservative about a Republican, they look at you and go, I don't know, I hate them too. I'm with you. I hate Republicans too. A conservative hates the Republican Party. That's the big difference. I don't know.
Yeah, so many reasons. Either they're too, half of them aren't really conservative. They're not conservative enough. Some of them then you have the ones who are weak, right? And then they compromise their principles before you get to whether you agree with them on policy. Right? It's just, I don't really have them. I mean, like Mitt Romney. So I'm supposed to be on the same team. Mitt Romney marched in a BLM march.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a deal breaker. I wrote the book. I mean, it's a deal breaker. He could do nothing. We always use this analogy. He could cure cancer. And I would be like, fuck Mitt Romney.
You know what, though? Joe Biden's on the way to curing cancer. If he doesn't hold that campaign promise that he said multiple times, again, Joe Biden could honestly end the war in Ukraine, unseat Putin single-handedly, take out Kim Jong-un, solve world problems besides cancer. He's a failed president.
But to be fair, he said he was going to do that under the Kamala Harris presidency. How many times has he also called her president? So
too many.
Oh, man. But yeah, this was lots of fun. Once again, he's Charles Love, co-host of the Cut the Bull podcast and author of Race Crazy, a book that everyone should go pick up. And this was a blast, man. I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything that you would like to plug before we get out of here?
I guess so. I mean, you talk about action and doing things. A friend of mine, we're working on some events. A friend of mine in my own organization, Seeking Educational Excellence. But a friend of mine is doing a Black Conservative Summit in Chicago. It's a 2-day event on the 24th and 25th of March. You should go there because I will be there. And I think that's enough reason to buy a ticket. But, if you want some lackey that you never heard of, Vody Bacham and Jason Whitlock and Shelby Steele and Larry Elder will be there. And they're showing Uncle Tom too. This is an event you need to go check that out. You should go. I think it's blackconservativesummit.net. Go check that out. And then we're doing an event in April. I'll come back to, maybe tell you more about that coming up as well.
I would love that. I would love that. And if you don't come back by then, still let us know. We'll promote it regardless because we want to get that word out there. David, make sure you keep checking your mail because I'm pretty sure Charles is going to hook it up and get us some tickets for that Black Conservative Summit, right? Like,
you got to come. I'm not flying you from New York to Chicago or to Arizona, so you got to get your own freight there.
But once again, Charles Love, this was a great show. We will be back again next week with another fun show. Everybody, so long.